Hi, it's Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Welcome to the A.D.K channel. Today we are doing an album review of the band Elderseer, and the album is Drown in Shallowness. So doom metal, I guess, is the genre. I'm guessing just classic doom. I'm not really sure if it has a subgenre, but as the non-doom guy, I figure I'm going to go first, because then you probably have more to sort of elaborate on than what I'm going to talk about. I have to be honest, I listened to it. Every song being around the 10-minute mark kind of started killing me. I have to be honest, because normally when they're like 10-12-minute songs, you get about 5 tracks and then that fills your album up. When you've got like 8 or 9 tracks, which was on the album, I was like, okay, we can do this. However, I got real hints of Paradise Lost's Shades of God era. That's the kind, and if I actually didn't know who this band was, I would have thought I was actually listening to Paradise Lost. For me, as a non-doom guy, knowing Paradise Lost, I could hear there were certain elements of this band that really did sound like that. Not specifically Shades of God album, but I would have thought maybe it was another Paradise Lost album that I hadn't heard of. I really liked the opener, Gilded Shackles. I thought that was very cool, full of atmosphere, set the tone for the album. But probably for me, I would have liked that to have been about a 2.5-minute opening track, just kind of setting the tone and then moved on to another song. When it then goes to like whatever 10 minutes, and I'm like, okay, you're dragging it on. And that, I thought that was kind of a thing for me. The first 2-3 minutes of a song I really liked, and then I'm like, okay, we're still going, and it's still sludging along, and I'm like, this is hard work for me. The thing that I did find on a lot of the tracks that I really liked was when we had nice little breaks in parts of the songs. We had great use of piano. Really liked the piano use on this album. There was some nice, like on the first track, Gilded Shackles, great counter melody with the piano versus the vocals. Although they weren't playing the same, like a harmonized melody, they were playing an off kilter melody with each other. Was it the Aesthetic Life? I loved the Greg McIntosh style lead guitar on there. I thought that was very good. She is the Ocean, mid-tempo. Well, it's mid-tempo for a doom song, which means it's a slow hard rock song basically. But it was a mid-tempo doom song for me, and I liked it. Very sludge, elements of like kind of gothic era Paradise Lost. Again, wonderful lead guitar melodies in that one, and The World Is Your Cloister was my other song that I really liked. Very dramatic, cinematic start to the track. Almost had this kind of sitar Arabian Nights vibe going on the guitar, which I thought was very cool. And it switches to a slightly unnerving, horror showy creepiness to the track, which I thought was very cool. Anything that makes me kind of go, okay, I've got a shiver down my spine and I don't know why. And I'm not sure it would have worked perfectly in a horror movie. Weirdly, the rockiest track, The Struggle Is Ethereal, which to me they tried to change a bit of the tone of the album, was the weakest track on the album. They tried to up-tempo it, they tried to make it a bit more rocky. It really kind of almost went into the realms of melodic death metal, just slowed down. They kind of moved away what was working with the rest of the album. Rest of the album, fairly standard doomy tracks as far as I can tell. Nothing for me to really write home or get excited about, but there were at least 4 tracks of the album that I enjoyed. Over to you, Andy.
Okay. I think out of the 3 doom albums we reviewed recently, this is the slowest and the heaviest. It's a doom fan's album. It's not instantly accessible, or as the term that we use, like a gateway album into doom, like Iron Void was. You know, it's you know, I echo a lot of what you said, David. To be honest, you know, I started off noting down, there's some Paradise Lost influences here, but that was you know, evident throughout. You know, there's the sort of the single note melodies over the you know, the power chords. You know, that's very Paradise Lost. And like you, I've noted down that first opening track, Gilded Shackles, word for word comment for you, it sets the stall for the album. It sort of gives you a true indicator of what you're going to expect for the next hour or so. You said about the songs being long. I didn't think they were. I know they were. I mean, they're quite short for doom songs around the.
They are short for doom.
Yeah, but I wasn't sort of bored and looking at the timer and thinking, oh, I'm on to the next one. Yeah, I thought it was a fantastic album. We said about Paradise Lost. There's a riff, unintentionally or maybe intentionally, which is almost identical to "Sear Me" off the first My Dying Bride album.
Okay.
I thought I've heard this, and it took me a few listens to pinpoint it. But even the guitar tone is very similar. But again, back to the Paradise Lost connection. Very Nick Home vocals at the time on the sort of cleaner spoken word types. But my resounding sort of vocal comparison is Sakis from Rotting Christ. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of this band, but I've got the Sorrowful Farewell album, which is quite old. But again, that's what I thought when I heard this guy's vocals, which I really did enjoy. Bit of context as well. I put this album to us, the team to review. I was approached by Vinny, who's the lead guitarist. He joined last year. He saw our Iron Void review, and praised us for the content and what we did on that. And he used to have a band called Desolate Pathway, which unfortunately are on a bit of a hiatus with Jonathan Seal from Iron Void. They sort of toured together. I don't think Jonathan's on the albums, but I've seen them perform together in Desolate Pathway. But yeah, really, really good album for me. There are obviously the Doom influences that I've already mentioned, but yeah, very much enjoyed that.
Kirk?
I had this on my radar, it turns out, for Screen Blast Repeat through Imperative PR. So Andy, was it Vinny that sent you the Dropbox files in advance? And I realised I already had them and I had the press release with it. So it's important, we need to tell our viewers here, this album is 1 hour and 8 minutes in length. However, the last 4 tracks, the last half of the album, is actually an EP that they released in 2018. So there's, are they being mendacious though? No, there's nothing that you would say is dishonest about that.
Quick question in relation to that, so before you move on. Were they remixed tracks from the 2018 or
no,
are they exactly the same?
So you've got a different lineup.
It's the other two, Kirk, but I've noted down that She's the Ocean and the World is Your Cloister were on that previous EP. I perhaps haven't noted down the other ones because there's a music video for The World is Your Cloister, and 2018 is the timeline for that. But yes, carry on.
But was there any additional production done on them, or were
not
they?
Not that I can tell. Different lineup.
Because that I do have a slight issue. I have a slight issue with that.
Yeah,
I think if you're doing an EP and then you'll want to use the songs from the EP on the album, there should be a change done to those tracks. The EPs are like a statement of time. Mm-hmm. Then there might be a rework, there might be an edit to the song, there might be some additional strings added, there might be something changes to make them viable to go on another release. Otherwise, really, it's not another album, it's an EP they've put out.
Exactly. I mean, maybe Vinny Conrad or Barry Copestake, the vocalist, can clarify that for us.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know.
I can tell it's a different lineup for the latter half. So is this an album? Yes. Those first 4 tracks are new, and they clock in at 36 minutes. They could have released that as the album without a decline in quality. We've all mentioned the first track, which is excellent, isn't it? Gilded Shackles.
Yeah.
To me, I heard more My Dying Bride in that than any other band. Out of the Peaceful 3, as they know, My Dying Bride, Paradise Lost, and Anathema, I don't hear much Anathema in this. You're right, Paradise Lost really take over to the point where it almost becomes reductive on This Aesthetic Life and Drowning the Shallowness of it all. However, there are some remarkable moments on these songs that are really unique. Track number 3, This Aesthetic Life, you mentioned it, Dave, with counter melody. There's this moment where the guitars are talking to the Gothic pianos, and it's a really unusual interlude that they use to modulate to the next tempo change. The vocals are absolutely fantastic, gratuitous bloodlust in these vocals. They're really carnivorous. So Barry Copestake is the continuous presence in this band. It's his band, really, isn't it? Wow. Any metal vocalist out there, if you're looking for inspiration, listen to this. The cadences, the clarity in the voice is sensational, considering how harsh they are. Even better than, you would have to say, Nick Holmes in terms of the growl, and that's very difficult to do. His clean vocals are not quite Nick Holmes standard, but we need to get away from comparing him to just one person. I think Barry really does put in a magnificent performance here. To me, the second half of the album, or the 2000 EP Binders as One, which makes up side 2 of this album, is slightly better. It's heavier, isn't it? Dave, you mentioned melodic death metal, definite Carcass impact on that song. You did quite engage with. The struggle is ethereal. You can hear Jeff Walker, can't you, from Carcass in that. Some real good riffing in that as well. They've got a supreme talent for just changing the tempo without any warning whatsoever. So you'll get that head drooping doom metal fifth chords in She Is the Ocean, and then from nowhere the violent drum snares and double kicks will just come in with a really crunchy, muted riff. I love that, and that's where, to me, I always identify that with My Dying Bride, because there's so much space in the music. Dave, I'm going to ask you as a drummer, is it easier to just throw in the tempo change when you're playing at 60 BPM to ring in fifth chords?
No.
It's not.
Doing, to be honest, when you're playing to a click at 60 BPMs, doing double kick and stuff like that is actually really difficult because your body actually wants to go faster. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing slow double kick, for instance, it's actually your body wants to bring that speed up because it's more comfortable. So playing slow double kick is actually more difficult than playing that blast beaty type stuff. Is a lot easier because you just let your legs go, and
they seem to just go from that, like those double kick eighth notes, and then they will just switch it, and you're not expecting it. So the extreme metal impulse to this is quite impressive. I would prefer more of it, and often I do think that they rely too much on just those ringing fifth chords. So do you know, we always talk about what type of doom metal is this? This is not the Candlemass or Iron Void type doom metal where you've got Black Sabbath riffs in there. This really is the misery, piling on the misery, isn't it? But they do have some crunchy hooks in there as well. I think what I realized from this is I do prefer the more post-metal side of this, with the avant-garde elements, with a bit of Celtic frost in there, and obviously violins and even the hardcore influence that the likes of Neurosis bring into the music. I know that they're a completely different equation, but they're playing at a similar tempo, aren't they? And there's that same element of overwhelming grief in the music, and I think this band capture it really well. They're very successful in making you feel like you are in mourning and preparing for a funeral, and that is clearly what they're going for, isn't it? And to actually produce that on an emotive level in music is very difficult to do. So there are some high points for me, but the album's too long, and they're really cheating us here because it's not an album. They've got 4 new tracks, and then the remaining 4 are an EP, which, as far as I can tell, has not been remastered, not been re-recorded. You've got a different lineup on that. Absolutely no need to stick that onto the end of these 4 tracks. This would have been good enough as just track 1, 2, 3, and 4. The average song length is fucking 9 minutes, for God's sake, isn't it? So it's not as if you're being undersold or anything.
Last question regarding this issue with the EP stuck on the end. I've listened to it in my van, and one of the speakers is fucked, so I haven't got the best equipment to listen to this particular album and many others we've done reviews of recently. But is it apparent when you get to track 5, does it sound like it's a different recording from 4 years ago? Or,
not necessarily.
But they use the same studio and the same techniques, and it kind of blends together well. So I haven't got a problem with what they've done, if that is the case. I mean, I've noted down that the songs are the same. I haven't listened to that first EP. I've seen
that the second.
If they had just re-recorded it.
I would say that the issue is it's less of an issue nowadays because of the streaming element, so it's less of a problem. But I suppose if you were to go back and do it as a physical release, if you've bought the EP back in 2018 and you spent £8 on the EP, and then they bring an album out and it's just the same 4 songs from that EP with another 4 on, and they're charging you album prices, then actually you're not getting value for money, because you're not getting, if they're charging you £14 for 8 new songs and actually you've already got 4 of those songs, what's the purpose of having those 4 songs? You only actually need 4, so I'd much rather have just had a new EP. And that's the challenge back. I think you can't. I mean, we need to know from the band what the reason was behind doing it, and if it's just because they wanted to re-record it with some new guys, but it's exactly the same, that's fine. That's a decision. And actually, someone might decide that they want it from the album because they never had the EP in the first place. But I'm probably like Kirk. I'd rather have had an EP come out with 4 new songs on and gone, there you go, that's the new EP, to follow it up for 2023 as the following transition, and this is the 4 tracks we're doing. But I think we need to know from the actual band itself what has happened there, because there may be some changes. I don't know any of those songs anyway, so
my issue is that you can hear a different band inside too. Let's give an example where this has happened before. Napalm Death Scum. The first half is recorded by a different band, isn't it, to the second half, but you can't tell the difference. This one you can. I think they had a different approach to their music. It's a bit slower than new stuff. Track 1 to 4, more sorrow in there, whereas the latter half, that 2000 EP, which they just seem to have glued onto this one as side B.
I agree.
I prefer that. I actually prefer it. It's heavier, it's a bit faster. There are more extreme metal moments in there, more death metal in there. So it sounds a bit disjointed. I think now that I'm aware of it, it does have an impact. I'm thinking, okay, why not just skip to track number 5?
And it's weird because I sat there and I felt the first 4 tracks were the more well-written, completed tracks. They felt fuller. They felt better produced overall. I felt the last 4 tracks felt very generic. There wasn't any real substance. That I was like, I just went, melodic kind of death, sludgy, bit rockier. There wasn't any key points. I think even on the very last track, I said the saving grace. My note says the saving grace was the fact when the piano section comes in, that saves the track for me, because up until then I was like, generic doom, nothing really special there. Whereas on the first 4 tracks there were elements, really good elements all the way through them, whether that was the lead guitar parts or whatever it might be. There were new elements that weren't in the second half of the album for me. But anyway, I think we could go on for hours talking about this. I think what we need to do is make a decision for each of us on the scoring of this album. So we score it out of 4 potential categories. Is it a bin it, a trade it, a stream it, or a buy it? We'll kick over to you, Andy, first. What's your decision?
Are we looking to buy this? Last point on this EP business, I've did a bit of research. I don't think it was released as a physical copy. Again, Ben might be able to confirm it otherwise. So I'm pleased it's stuck on there.
Okay.
At the end, I didn't realise it. Not listening to the best equipment. I didn't notice there, 2 different recordings from 2 different bands with 2 different lineups. But really, really enjoyed it. All 8 tracks. Definitely buying it.
Cool. Well, for me, it's a stream it. There's enough on there for me to go back and listen to. I'm not a big Doom fan, but I do like sludgy stoner rock and stuff like that. So there are elements of it. But what I will probably say is I could probably listen to 1 song, and I'd have to go and listen to something else after a while. I couldn't do more than 1 song at a time. But definitely stream it for the tracks that I enjoyed. Kirk, for yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to trade it. This is more death doom. I'm pleased that there were no stoner metal elements in there. I didn't hear any of that, to be honest. Each individual track, when I sit down and listen to it, I'm scoring them like 7 out of 10 really consistently. But as an album experience, it's just too long. I don't want an hour and 8 minutes of death doom. Give me 40 minutes. But I mean, Dave, I think you're being merciful. You don't really listen to doom metal. Yeah, you could stream an hour and 8 minutes of this.
No, I could stream tracks off the album.
Oh, okay.
So there is enough. If it was just 1 song, then I'd be like, I'd have to do it as a trade it. But there's at least 4 songs on the album that I could stream, which means at least 50% of the album. Basically, the first half of the album I would stream. The second half, unfortunately, I wouldn't. So as it's 50% or more of the album that I would stream. So it's the reason I wouldn't buy it, because there's not enough in there for me to actually spend money on it. But I would go and stream it online and listen to it that way. So that's why we had that option.
Go on, Andy.
Isn't that Ahab album an hour and 8 minutes long?
Yeah, but that's fantastic. That's avant-garde doom metal. Remember, I'm a metal elitist, aren't I? So
you are an elitist.
I actually said about the Ahab album, I wish it was even longer.
I
You do,
actually,
yeah.
I always thought that one of it would be either me or Randy that would be the elitist or the closed ones, and it's actually it's Kirk. You are the elitist one.
I've only turned into this since you showed me that fucking baby metal video.
They'll kill you for that one. Anyway, right. So that means if we've got to buy it, a stream it, and a trade it, that means from the channel it's a stream it as our overall score. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on another video sometime very soon. Take care.